We heard today that Zillow finally is rolling out the Opendoor partnership in Atlanta and Raleigh. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so Zillow announced earnings today after the close, and basically what they revealed is that the long-awaited Opendoor Zillow partnership is now live. We haven't gotten too many details about it, and unfortunately, no analysts asked any follow-up questions during the conference call. But what we do know is that Zillow launched the partnership with Opendoor in two big markets. So markets Atlanta and Raleigh. Which are Opendoor's number 2 and number 15 largest markets by volume as of right now. And so the exciting thing about this is not only did we get this announcement, but we also got sort of the user experience, so the customer experience when they enter into Zillow's funnel and end up moving over to Opendoor's website. And I think it's important to think about it this way. Zillow is trying to gain more seller solutions, right? And so when a homeowner comes to Zillow to sell their home, Zillow doesn't currently have a lot of options because guess what? They exited iBuying in 2021. But by partnering with Opendoor, when homeowners come to Zillow to sell their home, now Zillow can give them a variety of options, including getting a cash offer from Opendoor today. And so that partnership is really exciting because, as you can imagine, it really broadens Opendoor's funnel for prospective clients and acquisitions. And we've been really waiting on that because we continue to believe that Opendoor ramping acquisitions or home acquisitions is the most important part of their thesis as we move farther into 2023.
Yeah, before we jump into how the experience looks like, we have a recording of the experience and can work through it step by step. You're already drinking early today. That's great. Or I guess it's late for you.
I'm there.
I just wanted to double click on the two markets, Atlanta and Raleigh. What we see is from Opendoor's perspective, they have a very different margin profile right now in their inventory in those two markets. I think Atlanta is super healthy, while Raleigh is, it's not terrible, but it's on the lower end of the margin spectrum. They're like barely profitable on the embedded margins on their listing margins right now. We don't know how many customers will go for this flow. We don't know how much Opendoor will increase purchases for this, but it's quite interesting that they took two markets. They didn't take their two strongest markets and margins. They just took two very different markets, right?
Yeah. I think that brings up 2 points. One is we can see an immediate boost in margins for Opendoor just because of the sheer volume that Atlanta has as a baseline, right? So Opendoor's operational capacity in Atlanta is so much that they could probably absorb, a 3 to 4x volume in that market alone with the Zillow partnership and still operate well, right? And so that's really exciting because they sort of picked the market where they dominate, right? Atlanta is far and away Opendoor's best market. I don't necessarily mean always has the highest margin or always has the highest number of homes, but just across the board is their blue chip market, right? So always in the top 3 for volume, always in the top 3 for margin. They just crush it there. And so being able to broaden the funnel there means even more operational excellence in their core market, which is really exciting. But Raleigh is interesting because, like you said, they haven't been performing very well in Raleigh. It's probably a 25th percentile by margin market for them. And so what's exciting about that, for me at least, is you could really turn things around quickly with regard to listing margin or embedded margin in a place like Raleigh. If the Zillow faucet begins to turn on and you start getting all these new homes acquired at really good prices, because then those homes can be relisted, with pretty fat spread attached to it. And so that's exciting. But the other thing that's important to say before we dive into the UX is to remember that Zillow is highly incentivized for this project and partnership to go well. Not just from a payment perspective, but from we need Opendoor to do well for this deal to make sense perspective, right? So Zillow is being paid basically a referral fee to Opendoor when it sends homeowners to Opendoor's website through this integration. But also, there are performance milestones where Zillow is awarded warrants of Opendoor equity because of this relationship. And those warrants basically begin at $15 a share for Opendoor. I don't know if you've checked Opendoor's stock price recently, but it's like about $2 a share. So that's a ways to go, right? And so for this deal to make sense for Opendoor, for it to be a smart move by CEO Rich Barton, Opendoor has to both do well and Zillow has to both do well. But either way, it's a win-win for Opendoor because they're getting huge funnel whether or not the partnership, manifests or their stock price goes up. So I'm excited about it either way, but just being able to see that they finally turned it on was big news for today.
What I also love is the emphasis on this being a long-term partnership. So they might be collecting those warrants and this equity, and just to emphasize, the minimum price on that equity is $15. And I think at the time when this deal was announced and published, the stock price was already at like $6 or $5. I have a Twitter thread on this with the details. I will link it in the show notes. So if anybody wants to dive into that, and linking to SEC filings as well. But that means they already were pretty confident at the time when the stock price was depressed. Now they have to be even more confident. And I assume this was part of the negotiation, right? They're not just going to get cash. No, they believe that the company will be worth something. That's why they get equity. And they announced it as like a 5-year deal or something. It's a long-term deal. They're not trying this out and giving up. They will together work on making sure this makes sense for both companies in the next 5 years. All right. Let's take a look at how the funnel actually looks like. We have a recording here of the user experience. I hope you can see that. Maybe starting at the beginning. If you're looking up your own home address on Zillow, you will see a box on the public page, but also if you added your address to your Zillow account, you will see this as well. A new box saying you can get a cash offer for this home. And there's an estimated market value attached to it, which is still the Zestimate. It's the Zillow estimate. It's not what Opendoor thinks the preliminary offer will be. It's what the expectation starts with this estimate, right? You can click on this button and you get immediately into a very similar experience that we have on the Opendoor page. You get a lot of questions about your home. What was quite interesting is on this page, you need to fill out a lot of information about your home, like how many bedrooms you have, when was the home built, and all this information is on the Zillow public page. So like, it's kind of weird that you have to enter this. And I think in actual Opendoor's flow on Opendoor's website, this is all pre-filled, the data that they have. So it's kind of maybe an additional hurdle on purpose or not. So you see me entering all this data that I copied over from Zillow's actual public page. And after you filled out all this data, which will take me a while here in the video.
Who knew about 3/4 bathrooms, by the way? Have you ever heard of that before?
No, I have no idea what that actually is. Important for the valuation, it seems.
I guess.
A lot of questions here. And I guess there's a lot of questions here that will disqualify you from that experience. We have to enter our name and our phone number here. Obviously, I just used a generic Atlanta address here. This is not my name and not my phone number. Please don't call me. And we get a little bit of a disclosure of all the companies that Zillow is affiliated with. And after that, we see we get to a screen that takes a little bit of time. I guess this is where Zillow talks to Opendoor's API and gets a preliminary offer based on the data that was input. And there it is. So we get to an offer page with two parts to it. One is sell with an agent, which shows Zillow's estimate. I think it was the same thing as in the beginning. Confirm. Actually, this one is higher than in the beginning. So maybe this is actually also coming from Opendoor. This is probably again a mixed result of what the most accurate number of what the home is worth right now. And the first option is selling with a partner agent. That means if you select this, your offer would go to probably a premier agent that is working with you to list the home. You can say you will schedule a call with an agent to refine your home value and create a selling plan. Then you decide to sell on a sale price and list your home. And then the next step, obviously we know how home buying works. You just select the winning offer. There's nothing in between. No like showings or anything. That's kind of weird here, but like you select the winning offer and then close and move and get paid. It's also quite honest about the benefits and things to consider with going with a traditional seller, which is quite interesting. And then we see the Opendoor offer, the preliminary offer. It is quite transparent about let me go back here. It is transparent about the fee, the 5% fee that you're paying to Opendoor, and the closing costs and your estimated cash proceed. It also has some details about how the process works, the digital walkthrough, and actually getting paid after that. Here it has the benefits. Get an all-cash offer within days, skip stagings and open houses, choose a closing date and move. They call out that this is a less hands-on, mostly digital experience, which is an interesting wording for this as well. And if you now decide to go with the Opendoor offer, you click on continue to Opendoor, where you have to enter your email address, and you get a link to Opendoor, and you get into the default Opendoor seller experience. You're landing on Opendoor's website. You're logged in there. What's interesting is the buyer services that Opendoor offers. Those are not available in this if you're going through this funnel. So the assumption here is whatever customers Opendoor acquires here, they are not allowed to upsell them on other services that Zillow might offer as well. It's only for selling services, likely also not for third parties seller experiences. Those are only rolled out in Texas right now, so we don't really know how it will behave. But it's very likely that Zillow won't send customers to Opendoor to then sell on their exclusives marketplace, right? Yeah.
Just want to dovetail off that point, because the absolute best version of this partnership is that Zillow sends leads to Opendoor, which then go to Opendoor's third-party marketplace. And Opendoor has an offer, but also has all these offers from institutions and prospective home buyers that Opendoor links to those sellers. That is the best version of this partnership. A better scenario for Opendoor would just be if they can make that third-party marketplace sing by themselves. But I would say, let's say, we're 18 months from now and the third-party marketplace is still only 5% of Opendoor's business. I think if I were, in the war room trying to decide what next steps would be, I would really want to integrate the third-party experience with Zillow to try to make that happen. When I used to write about, Opendoor, big, long essays about the strategy and kind of the opportunity, I said that it didn't really make sense for Opendoor and Zillow to team up. but that is the one place where the puzzle pieces fit perfectly, right? Is if all of these, these 200 million eyeballs that come to Zillow's website every month, all those sellers that are in that population, if those can be sent over to Opendoor's third-party marketplace, that is the best real estate model in existence. It would be, and it would be a titan.
Yeah, I I I wonder what Zillow thinks about that. I guess it eats into Zillow's core business, which is showing MLS data, right? Uh, my assumption is all customers that are coming through this funnel will only get the first party experience, not even the buy with Opendoor experience. One thing we even saw in the press release is that these customers going to Opendoor might even use Zillow's closing services. So there might even be limitations in the long term of like how title and escrow can be attached to this from Opendoor's perspective. I think Zillow will make sure that this is beneficial to their users' experiences and not actually to Opendoor's users' experiences. So it will be interesting how this evolves if there will be an expansion of services that are included from Opendoor's side. One interesting thing is when I went through this flow the first time, I actually got a text message from Zillow. And so immediately there's a Zillow seller consultant that contacts you even if you haven't finished the flow. And I assume this is a Zillow employee that makes sure you're actually converting through this flow. Question is, what will this seller consultant recommend? There are two options. Will they recommend the Opendoor option or will they recommend the Premier Agent? I think from Zillow's perspective, if you're talking to a Zillow employee, it actually makes sense to recommend Opendoor's option. Because if you think about it, Zillow only gets paid if the seller actually converts. And there's a lot of drop-off points if they connect you to Zillow Premier Partner, right? You could drop off way at the end when you already had 15 showings and you just don't want to do this anymore and you put your home off market, or you could just never want to talk to the person you got connected to, where there's a lot less risk and the experience is a lot shorter if they send you to Opendoor. I think it's kind of a conversation what actually fits the seller, but it's really interesting that there's this hands-on sales experience. Like I even got immediately a call like an hour later from the Zillow seller consultant. I didn't take the call. It would have been interesting to hear what they're trying to pitch, but
Yeah, you should have taken the call and messed with them a little bit and gone down the road and kind of been like, I'm really between these two options. What do you think about Opendoor? Just to see what they're trying to say.
Maybe we can do this for next episode. It was still 5 a.m. for me, so I was like, I'm not want to talk to somebody from Zillow right now.
I bet 10 people in our Discord will do it by tomorrow.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what they say. Yeah, pretty exciting news. I didn't expect it to be that ready already, or like to launch exactly on Zillow's earnings call day. So pretty happy with that. Hopefully we get some more details around Opendoor side of things next week. Hopefully some of those analysts will actually ask questions about it to clarify.
I think the one final point I want to make about that before we move on is I think the Zillow Opendoor partnership was announced prior to Opendoor announcing their plans for this third-party marketplace. And so, but that doesn't, I mean, obviously they've been thinking about this third-party marketplace for a long time. So that doesn't mean that behind closed doors, Opendoor and Zillow didn't come to an agreement regarding the third-party marketplace. But I would say the important thing to remember is that the economics of the third-party sale for Opendoor being the middleman in the transaction mean that Opendoor can pay higher, referral fees, and still end up more profitable in a transaction using less of their leverage and debt in their balance sheet and still grow their third party marketplace profitably. And so I would be I'd be pretty disappointed if there wasn't a long-term plan for Opendoor to include the third-party marketplace because truthfully, it's a better customer experience too, right? Like right now, you look at Opendoor's offers on homes and they're having to offer, 10% less than maybe what the Zestimate says because there's so much volatility, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And so they need to make sure that they're buying these homes at good spreads. But in a situation where Opendoor is the middleman, they can connect and just take their normal fee. And so there's a lot more options for the customer. It's just as fast. And ideally, the customer is actually able to pocket a little bit more cash in that situation. More options is always good for the customer, right? And that's what I think we should be fighting for in residential real estate. Being able to integrate the third-party marketplace in the Zillow deal must be like the long-term goal of this product.
Yeah, I would definitely not rule it out, especially if you look at markets, rural markets where there's just not that many cash offers, etc. Or where even Opendoor can't make a confident offer. We heard about this before, like how can Opendoor go truly nationwide in every single community, not just the big markets that they're in right now. The third party marketplace is the way to go. And if they have the demand and the supply, then I don't see why Zillow would say no to this additional way of monetizing traffic, right?
Right.
Talking about 3 years down the line, it's probably not something that will happen this year or next year. But if Opendoor gets traction with their third-party marketplace, it would be smart for Zillow to go in under this well to not lose relevancy.
Agreed.
That's far in the future where we talk about Zillow lose relevancy to Opendoor, if ever, right?